Welcome to 5 Minutes and a Cup of Joe. I'm Joseph Ashcraft Jr. Let's get started. Longtime ESPN broadcaster Lee Corso announced his retirement from College Game Day after Week 1. His career that began when College Game Day began in 1987. His final broadcast will be August 30th. The former coach has become known for phrases like, "Not so fast, my friend," will put the winning mascot head on one final time to open up the 2026 NCAA football season. Rory McIlroy winning the Masters in the playoffs is one of the most exciting things happening in golf in a while. I love the ceremony where the previous winner presents the coveted green jacket to the winner. The tradition, unlike any other, showed His Majesty yet again this year. McIlroy fought off Englishman Justin Rose to win the tournament and finish 11 under par. Congrats to Roy on winning the Grand Slam. He's now won the big four major tournaments. The four majors are the Masters, the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, and the Open Championship, also known as the British Open. Only 6 golfers have achieved this feat, making it highly coveted. Will he or won't he? Aaron Rodgers' NFL career is in limbo. The New York Jets have told him they're moving on from him. He is looking at all options right now, from backing up quarterback J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota or retiring. Rodgers is one of the best to ever play the game, but has a headache of dealing with his baggage worth a 20th NFL season. It seems like ever since Tom Brady played forever, Rodgers wants to as well. Rodgers throws the prettiest deep ball in the NFL, but Father Time is undefeated. Will an NFL team go the Jerry Springer route and accept his baggage? If Rodgers does go to the Vikings, he will have gone the full Brett Favre route, drafted by the Packers, leading them to a Lombardi Trophy, going to the Jets to miss the playoffs entirely. So Rodgers is currently from the class wondering, should I stay or should I go? Will the Bill Belichick experiment work in North Carolina? Longtime NFL head coach is going back to school, coaching North Carolina Tar Heels. Bill doesn't seem to be too sour on not getting another NFL gig, that he described by once coached North Carolina as the 33rd NFL team. North Carolina opens up season number 6 Christian University on September 1st. Is Travis Hunter going to play both ways in the NFL? Two-way athletes at one time are not uncommon. Chuck McMark of the Eagles used to play center and linebacker. Deion Sanders is probably the most recent example of a two-way player. Hunter himself is demanding he be allowed to play both offense and defense, and he's threatening to quit playing football if he doesn't. NFL players used to pursue second jobs in the offseason too. They no longer have to do that. They make so much money now. It'll be interesting to see how his next opportunity will treat him. On to baseball now. Kyle Tucker has to be extended by the Chicago Cubs, right? Surely they can find enough money to re-sign this guy. He has kept the Cubs relevant in a pennant race where they just lost their ace pitcher in Justin Steele. His huge game-winning home run against the Diamondbacks on the 18th of April, giving the Cubs a 13-11 victory over Arizona, should be evidence enough that he wins ball games. If the Cubs extend him, I will happily buy a new Cubs jersey. My favorite player on the Cubs was starting pitcher Shodi Imanaga, but Tucker is quickly becoming my favorite now. How is Shohei Ohtani so good at baseball? The man is like what would happen if you put in creative player in MLB The Show and maxed out all stats at 100. The man gets to 100 miles an hour and hits the ball 450 feet as a designated hitter. Ohtani has no weaknesses as a hitter. He hits for average and power and steals bases. Designated hitter used to be a dirty word, especially for National League fans. Now every team has it. Good for him for being better than anyone, even Edgar Martinez of the Mariners, at that position. Ohtani makes the Dodgers a special ball club, and they're going to be a tough team barring injury this season. Top to bottom, 1 through 9, this team has no weaknesses. I feel sorry for whoever has to face them in October. If you look up the term 5-tool player in the dictionary, Shohei Ohtani's picture should be there. On to another player who's otherworldly on the diamond. Elly De La Cruz, the Cincinnati Reds, should be there too. He is among the top 10 in baseball as of runs batted in, and he is being projected by Sun to be NBA's first billion-dollar player. Yes, you read that correctly. Billion. If the Reds can build around De La Cruz, they should get back in contention at the NL Central. The man went from a center fielder to a shortstop and has seemingly unlimited range. The Reds are MLB's oldest franchise, playing baseball since 1869. They last won the World Series in 1990. The 76 Reds and the Big Red Machine are probably the greatest lineup ever. May Pete Rose rest in peace. This has been 5 Minutes and a Cup of Joe. I'm Joseph Ashcraft Jr. Thanks for listening. Please visit my website, pznsports.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Power Zone Sports Podcast. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Tired week. We have a good time doing it. You can also catch us on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Podbean, and Spotify. Catch us in the middle of the week as we do what's it called, Seth?
The mini cast.
Mini cast. That's right. That's where we do a little 15-minute something in the middle of the week to get you over your hump day. Yeah, I've said it before, but I got to make that phone call and tell him when it's going to be. We have, are you ready? A celebrity in the house tonight. He has made it up the spiraled staircase up into the suite, and he is with us tonight.
Where is
MrHaunted himself, author, movie star, quasi-celebrity,
holy?
Jimmy Pettinino.
I was waiting for the celebrity to come in.
How you doing, man?
He's right there.
I'm happier than a red-crested mountain warbler chirping on a birch branch in the Appalachian Mountains.
That's pretty damn happy.
Thank you.
So, man, me and you have kind of got a little history together. We've known each other probably about 10 years, I'd say, close to it.
Over.
Yeah, I would say over.
Because I remember the first Haunted Chronicles was Friday the 13th, 2013. I did that purposely in case it failed miserably. I could blame it on the date. So I was on your shows even before that. I was just a kid.
Yeah, that's true. Because we kind of coaxed you into starting the Haunted Chronicles.
Yeah.
So I feel responsible for that.
I'll tell you about that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll babble for you. So back in the olden days, one of my friends gave me a link to Paramania Radio, which we all like talk radio. I thought, wow, this stuff's about. That's when podcasts weren't even really podcasts yet. That's all and it was cool because it was live and we had a chat room.
Yeah. So
you could interact with people. So my friend sent me it was Voices Carry.
Yes.
And I would go in there. It was funny because the first 3 episodes, Terry and Lisa were the hosts, and and my name was MrHaunted in the chat. So the first week they had John Zaffis on, and then I wrote in the chat, tell John I said hi, and then they said, hey Jimmy, and then the next week they had Ralph Sarchi on, and I said, tell Ralph I said hi. They only knew me as MrHaunted in the chat, and then Ralph said, hey Jimmy, and then the next week was somebody else, and then later Terry messaged me and said, how do you know all these people? So I was explaining to him, and then he goes, well, I want to have you on a guest, and I was like, no, I don't want to be a guest on any show. And then he exaggerated a little bit. He said, we have 18,000 listeners. I was like, I don't want to talk to 18,000 people. So I reluctantly went on there as a guest, and then I went on Awakenings with you and Joe, and we talked about UFOs because I had way more big UFO experiences than ghost stuff, which is kind of was my thing. But I had way more than my share of UFO experiences, I think.
Well,
what is some of your UFO experiences?
What was that?
What is some of your UFO experiences?
You want to know about them? Because I'm a little nerd, I'm very particular about dates, and I even went back and tried to backtrack just to get the exact date or year. When you tell a story, a lot of people try to find fake, like you're faking it or you're lying, and they'll say, one interview you said you were 7 years old, but in another one I heard you said you were 9. Like most of these things happen when you're 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know, but I tried to narrow down stuff. The first, I'll call it UFO that I ever saw, and all of my experiences are like huge, not a dot in the sky moving around or weird. These are huge, over my head. People stopped to watch these things. So the first one, I know the exact year. You can look it up. But I was, remember Kolchak the Night Stalker? I
do.
TV show. That was my favorite show ever. And I had to watch it on every Friday night. It was my thing. I was a little kid. And my mom said, oh, this Friday we have to go to her friend's house. And I said, but Ma, Night Stalker's on. I got to watch Night Stalker. And she, do you remember those radios that I forget what they were called, like a multi-band or something? Like we could get two TV stations on the radio, but just the audio. It was this weird radio we used to have. So I could get ABC on my radio. So you could listen to it on the radio on the way back from my friend's house. Well, I dropped something. And so I agreed to that. I said, that's okay. I'll do that. So that's what year it was. So I was and it was in the passenger side of the car, my mom driving, and we're going over this bridge that connects New Haven, Connecticut to East Haven, Connecticut. And it was it must have been on the way there because it was around dusk. It wasn't dark, you could still clearly see stuff. And we're going on over this bridge, which is above. It's a big bridge. I don't know how, like 100 feet above the water, whatever.
Okay.
And to my right, I see this big. And this is the first time I ever mentioned it because I was scared to tell people because I never heard of this type of UFO. And Tracy, you told me, no, I'll tell you. So then I saw this thing in the air, and it was a sphere, like maybe, I don't know, 200 feet, just estimate in diameter. And it had spikes coming out of it. And it looked like a big jack, like the ball and jacks you play with when you're a kid. And it had spikes coming out of it. It was like, dull silver. And it was just hovering there. And even as a kid, I'm like, must be some kind of airplane or a helicopter. I don't know what that is. And then it started doing these crazy maneuvers, like just like I said, it's like a water bug. Those bugs that skim on the top of the pond. It started doing that. Like, what? I had no idea what this is. So I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, what's that right there?" And she's like, "I don't know." So it wasn't like I saw it for a second. I was following it for the whole time she was driving until we turned around the corner and I couldn't watch it anymore. So that was the first one. And then I told you about it on your show because I was always afraid to tell people. I have my friends, I tell my family, but I would never say it publicly. And then you said, "Oh yeah, that's the old spiked UFO." And then I looked it up. I Googled it. It's a thing apparently.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Definitely a thing. Yeah.
But
it's as common as the triangle now.
I didn't know that, and that's why I like it even more now. He was like, "What was that? What was that thing?"
So
that was number one.
I have so many questions about this book.
Yep.
So you have, how long have you been actually going into cemeteries and doing your thing?
I don't like the whole, people like try to gauge their experience on, I've been doing this since, I saw a spirit in 1977, so I've been investigating for 72 years. The actual, when I started, I was in college, and I went to see Ed and Lorraine Warren came to our college for, on Halloween to do the lecture thing. I think I've heard of them before, but I didn't know what it was all about.
Right.
And when I was a kid, because I was a little nerd, I collected all ghost books and UFO books and stuff. And my favorite picture ever was the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, of that, that famous picture of the lady coming down the staircase.
Yep, absolutely.
And they called it a psychic photo. And they said, sometimes you take pictures and stuff will appear after you develop them in haunted locations. So I was like, I was a little kid. I still have the book, and I know what year it was. I was like, well, I want to get one of those one day. That was my goal in life. And actually, after that, I had that book. I saw this show called In Search Of, and each week they had In Search of UFOs, In Search of Bigfoot. This week was In Search of Ghosts, and Hans Holzer was the guest. And he said, you could find a ghost anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a haunted location. So I went down my basement, turned off all the lights with a flashlight, thinking I'm going to find a ghost. So I was very interested at an early age. After I saw the Warrens talk, they mentioned the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. And I said, yeah, these are my people. I like this stuff. It was hard back then to find people that, it wasn't popular then. It was, you were, considered weird. We still are, but, it wasn't so mainstream. So after um, she talked about, they talked about this spirit and this haunted cemetery in Connecticut. They call it the White Lady of Union Cemetery. So they said, I was under the impression, and they showed these amazing pictures that people took from the cemetery with all that, foggy stuff on it. And a lot of them looked like faces and
Right.
bodies. So I was like, I want to go there. But like I said, this is before Google. I didn't have any friends that knew where it was. But still, I was intrigued. So this was like 1988 or something. I used to go to cemeteries around where I lived and took pictures to see if I could get anything cool.
Right.
I finally, like 1990, 91 or something, I finally found out where Union Cemetery was, and I bought 2 rolls of film, and I was under the impression that that she just walks around this ghost, and if you're lucky, you can get her picture. So I waited like an hour or so. I said, "There's no ghost here," and I took my 2 rolls of film just as a souvenir to say I was here, and that would have been the end of it. But then when I got them developed, I got a few pictures, not all, not 20, but 4 or 5 pictures that were, that's not smoke, it's not fog, it's not lens stuff. That could, I was made me curious. So I went back. Oh, like this is before kids, before everything. So you had all the time in the world. I used to go. I went into work at 4 a.m. Still do, but I used to go there almost 4 or 5 times a week before I went to work. So I used to go like 2 o'clock in the morning all the time, taking pictures, and I accumulated so many. I call them ghost pictures that
Right.
I started an album. I had a whole photo album. I used to throw away ones that weren't so good, which
Dude,
is
that's your next
stupid.
book.
Yeah.
You can make a coffee table version.
Thank you. Good idea.
So
I remember not all of them are amazing, but some of them are really cool.
So you've been okay. So fast forward a little bit. You meet the Warrens while you're in college.
Well, it's a good story. I'm going to get to the Warren.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm leading that way. So a lot of people used to meet there on Fridays and Saturday nights. There could be like 20 people at the cemetery outside the gates taking pictures, and even make friends with the police officers who come check on you every so often. So one night, the cop was looking. He goes, "Hey, let me see what pictures you got now." So he had my album open on my trunk of my car, and he was flipping through them. And this woman came over, who I learned her name was Debbie, and she said, "Hey, let me see those." And she goes, "Wow, these are pretty good." She goes, "Ed and Lauren would love to see these. I work with them." I said, "Oh, I saw them at my college a couple of years ago." So she invited me to. They have meetings on Monday night, so she invited me the next Monday to go to the class or the meeting. So that's when I brought all my stuff to them, and they're very nice, and that's how it all started. Thank you.
So what was it? You eventually started working with the Warrens.
Yes. They said it was when you're brand new, they'd have these they call them classes, but they're classes / meetings every Monday. And you're brand new. They're not going to send you out on a case or anything, but it was fun because some nights they just they'd show a whole interview with one of the most famous, the more famous cases that they've had, and you get to see the whole thing in its entirety, the real names, the questions and answers with the people, and then some nights they just tell us about haunted cemeteries, or every night was something different. They'd have guests come every so often. That's how the whole Malachi Martin thing got started. And after a while, they'd they'd send you on a to investigate a house, because they used to have. Remember, they were the only people doing this in the New England, East Coast. I don't know. They were the only people doing this. It wasn't like now, where there's a ghost group on each corner of your town. Right. So they got so many cases that they would play their answering machine for us, and then they show all the calls that came in, and then they say, we want to, they try to pick the worst of the worst to go to, and then we finally were able to. They'd send you in a group, not by yourself, but we'd go with groups to these houses and interview them, and try to gather evidence, and then eventually they'll send you out by yourself with a partner or something. And I think that's what you asked.
Well, I mean, I want to get to Malachi Martin, but first of all, when you were involved with the Warrens, you were actually there with some exorcisms, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that, because there's a lot of people in this world that don't believe that demons exist.
This is another thing I learned when I got older. When I was younger, I used to like fight with people, argue. I used to argue with people, this is real. And you used to try to argue your point to them. And you realize when you get older, you can't prove it. If you didn't experience this for yourself, you can't make someone believe something.
Correct.
And like I said, the stuff I've seen, I'm not saying what it is, but a lot of it's unexplainable. So, I mean, you really have to experience something. I don't blame people for not believing, but don't, not make fun. What's the word? I can't think of the word. Like, don't negate what other people might have witnessed and think that they're making up stuff.
Right.
And your question was, exorcism.
Yes.
So the only exorcism with Ed and Lorraine that I was involved with was, that's actually a good story too. I was fairly new. I think it was like 1995 now, and I had a camcorder, which a lot of people didn't even have back then. And Lorraine said, we have a case somewhere, and the priest is doing a exorcism at the house. Now, it's a home exorcism, not a person.
Right.
And when I count 50 exorcisms that I assisted with, they're all of a person. I don't count whole house exorcism. Some people count their home exorcisms as I was an exorcism. I don't do that. But the first, she mentioned it one Monday night, and she goes, hey, we're having the priest is exercising a home next Wednesday, and who has a camera that would like to record this? So I shot my hand up, and I said, I want to go. She goes, okay, but you have to be in a state of grace to go. And I said, what's a state of grace? I don't know what that meant. And she goes, you have to go to confession. Holy mackerel. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go to a church to confession, guys. But I did. I wanted to do by the rules. So I went to the church, and that little Catholics out there, they have a little door. You sit in the confessional, and they have a little window they open up, and you really can't see them, and they have like a net in there.
Right.
And so I saw the little head in there. I'm a little nervous. And I said, forgive me, Father. It's been like about 10 years since my last confession. I did this and that. I stole candy, whatever I did. And he goes, why are you coming now? Why all of a sudden today? And I said, well, I have an exorcism to go to next week. And that curtain, like, you're supposed to have anonymity with that little window and the curtain and everything.
Right.
He comes around, pulls the curtain away, gets me by my arm, and pulls me out. He sits me down at this table. He goes, tell me all about this exorcism. So he was really interested in that stuff, apparently. Like I said, I got off late. I probably had to do 2 Hail Marys or something, which was good. And then,
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So that was the first one ever. But then this was very frowned upon back then. The group was so large back then that to be fair, they used to send lots of people to the same house over and over again, like almost every night, to gather evidence. Like they want something on film or recorded, or
right.
And they try to be fair to everybody in the group. So I noticed this happening, and a lot of times I never got to follow a case from beginning to end because you'd only pop in that house once. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know what other people got. There's no kind of system to put it all together. And they're also getting really, really bad cases. I'm like, is there any, is there a little, Aunt Martha ghost out there somewhere instead of all these demonic type ones?
Yeah.
So a few of us started our own group, which was very frowned upon back then. And they didn't like that. And but I would still keep coming on Monday nights, and they'd talk about the other group, like right in front of me when I was part of the other group, like whatever. But that was the group that like I said, we just wanted our Aunt Martha ghost and be able to follow a case from beginning to end, so we can actually do research instead of just pop it in here and there. And the first case we had was a girl that was having stuff, happen in her house, scratches on the walls, voices, without going into the whole story. But we brought all our findings to our bishop there, and he says, well, he's willing to do an exorcism on her. That's this girl. She's 18 years old, and she goes, I don't feel like I'm possessed at all. But this is the girl that when she was her mother bought us VHS tapes when she was 13, and this was 5 years before, and they were unexplainable. And the mother was filming her to show doctors, not paranormal people.
Right.
She had there's videos of her in bed, like something's twisting her arm back and forth very rapidly, like bang, bang, back and forth. Something twisted her arm like so far like this that she broke bones in her wrist. And it's pretty hard to break your own bones just twisting your arm.
Yeah.
It was they just recorded her just like drooling on the ground. All these weird sorts of things, and they were recording her to show doctors like what's happening to my daughter, not anything paranormal.
Right.
And so then the mother said, might this have something to do with it? I was like, well, I don't know, maybe. But all this stuff started and ended within a year when she was 13, and maybe came back when she was 18. We don't know. So the bishop said, well, just in case, be safe. He goes, I'm willing to do an exorcism on the girl. And the girl said, she goes, I don't feel anything like that. She goes, I'm probably going to have no reaction. It's like, okay, whatever. So it can't hurt, And like I said, this is the first time we ever witnessed anything like this. So luckily, I set up my camcorder to document this whole thing. They said she thought she was just going to sit there and he's going to do his prayers and we go home. As soon as he started, doing his prayers, she started like wriggling out of her chair, and then the bishop's like, "Get the restraints out." Like, oh, it's like, what? So so anyways, we had restraints on her wrists and ankles, and one that went around her midsection to keep her in the chair. And she's getting out, she's snapping all the restraints and everything, screaming. Her eyes looked like they changed colors. Her brown eyes looked blue all of a sudden. Screaming. And at this time, she broke out of the restraints. We actually had to physically hold her down. Which you look back now, it's like, you can imagine the things that could happen when you're restrained, like the girl in Germany. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's really, we did some stupid stuff, but we're restraining her because we've learned that they attack us. They attack the priest. One girl was trying to gouge her own eyes out, so I'm trying to hold her arms away from her eyes. Anyways, this went on for an hour or so. And this was like one of the only cases where, it has a happy ending. Like after it was over, she never had any more issues. But she and her parents still send me Christmas cards every year, and this happened in the 90s.
wow.
And just kids now. But this is the one that ABC, we did a little like write up about it on our website, which is that was pretty new at the time. And Approves from ABC wanted to do some kind of Halloween special. They somehow found our page, and they asked if they could use the story for their special, and everybody agreed to it. So that it was seen by millions of people. It was huge at the time, and so we started getting calls from all over the country to get help. And then the next 2 or 3 years were crazy with just 5 regular people trying to figure out who's legitimate, who needs help. Can we get help in their area? Do we have to fly somebody to Connecticut? And it was crazy times for a while.
What about haunted dolls?
Oh, go ahead, Seth. I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad, man. What about the dolls behind you? Me and Tracy was looking at them earlier.
Did you see them?
Yeah, that one's creepy.
Those are all Halloween decorations. None of them are haunted. But I do have, yeah, it's just a little creepy for Halloween stuff. I don't have much storage space, but I don't prescribe to the, it's like you have a haunted whatever, and there's a demon inside of it. I just I don't believe that so much anymore. I think something could be attached to it, but I don't think there's any demon inside the ashtray that's haunted. But
Right.
I did copy Ed and Lorraine by Musée the Museum. So when we went to a notable case and there was a focal object that the story behind it, I would ask the people if I could have it. And 9 times out of 10, they would say, yeah, we don't want it in our house anyway. So I have a collection of stuff that, like all the stories you'll read in the book, like I have
Right.
most of those items that were causing trouble or were seen moving or floating, or like I have those. And it's just cool to have the actual item with that history behind it.
When you was at these exorcisms, I've never witnessed one. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen videos of it, but why is it that, and you may not even be able to answer this, but this is just a question that, why is it that they speak Latin?
I don't know. I think it might have something to do being like old and powerful, like ancient stuff seems to be,
Yeah.
I don't know if the word powerful is right, but it just seems like it is, and it's scary too, especially when the people don't proclaim to know other languages. But the old Latin rites, I mean, it's like they've been. It almost is like it's a terrible analogy, but if like billions of people pray to I don't know what, an orange or something, if millions of people with their thoughts or whatever are all praying with this thing, I think it becomes something. Because of all the. So I think the ancient thing they've been doing forever may be more powerful than some made up stuff that they just thought of last year or something. I don't know.
And didn't the ancient Romans speak Latin?
I think so.
I think they did too.
But I got a story for you about that. A lot of people. This is another thing I wrote in there because so many negative Nellies. I say, you've heard this before? How come only Catholics get possessed? It's like, well, I don't know where they're getting their information from, but we've had a girl from China, Jewish people. They're not all Catholics that
No.
I've experienced exorcism with. So I don't know where they got this only Catholics thing. And they still come to the Catholic Church for help because they seem to have it down better and not everything ends happily either.
Sure.
Sometimes these just don't work. But the scariest thing about you said about languages, I've seen everything but head spinning, and the vomiting thing. I didn't know. I just thought it was from the movies. But we used to set up the altar for the bishop before the exorcism. Just the stuff that they use for the exorcism. They set a special chair outside, the restraints, all the stuff he needs as relics. And actually, I have one right here. That's a first class relic that he gave me for helping.
Oh, okay.
That's cool.
It is. So he used to help set up everything, and a regular item that we used to get, we call it the vomit bucket, because we realized after a while, 9 out of 10 people vomited during the exorcisms, which was something new. And about the languages. So there's one girl from Germany that I wasn't personally there, but I have letters from all these clergy from Europe. Mm-hmm. She had to go to Belgium to get exorcism because Germany outlawed exorcisms because of Annalise Michel.
Right.
And the priests that were witnessing this, the witnesses witnessed her talking in 4 or 5 different languages. She claims she doesn't know any of these, answering back and forth very clearly. And then in knowledge, what I was saying was I've seen the whole screaming and breaking out of restraints and all this and that, but that could be explained. People could explain that. When you have knowledge that you're not supposed to have, that scares me more than anything. You're always worried that 100%. They're going to start saying your sins in front of everybody. And this one time, where was the woman from? Virginia. She was from Virginia, close to you guys. So,
Yeah.
like I said, we had so many people coming from different states that one of our members from our group picked up this woman from the airport, and me and this other guy is a police officer. We got to the church first, so we set up everything, and we're all ready. And so we're waiting for the woman to come, from the airport with our teammate. So we don't barely know anything about her because we had so many people coming in. It's like, somebody else was her contact person. So we just knew this woman was from Virginia. She never met us before. And before, they said me and the cop, we're just talking because we had nothing to do. We're waiting. We're sitting in the pews waiting. And he was saying, you're in church and you feel like you're holy all of a sudden, like for a minute, you're like, so he said, I had an argument with my mom on the phone last night, and I feel really bad about it, and I want to call and apologize as soon as I get home. It was just in the conversation. So then, halfway during her exorcism, she's like facing the priest like this, and then she in the middle she goes, "And you, the way you talked to your mother last night, that's disgusting." And then just went back to the priest. That scared me more than anything, knowing that she
Oh my
knew,
gosh.
scared
That's
me
crazy.
a little bit.
Wow. So you mentioned Malachi Martin.
Yeah.
How close was you to him?
What a story. I don't want to act like I was his best right hand man or anything. Some people wrote up a thing about it. Like, it wasn't like that at all. There's a lot of people that are, very close to him. But he was, like I said, guests came to Ed and Lorraine's meetings on Mondays, and every so often they'd have a guest. And one day she said, next week, Malachi Martin's coming to speak to us. And there was about maybe like 12 to 15 people in our group that night. And I was chatty back then. I said, well, who's Malachi Martin? And she goes, he's an exorcist. I'm like, how cool is that? I never heard of him before. This is before all the Art Bell appearances. And she goes, he's also an author. So I went to Barnes and Noble and I found Hostage to the Devil book, which all these things that happened were so amazing by chance of how this all happened. So when he came to speak, like I said, there's normally 12 to 15 people in our group. And I didn't know how big this guy was, what a following he had.
Yeah, huge.
Because word got out somehow, and there had been, I don't know, because I didn't count them, maybe 50 to 100 people in this little room that he came to talk to us at. And if you watch Hostage to the Devil, this came out when they edit stuff. You don't know what they're going to say because you look like an idiot sometimes when they edit stuff together.
Right.
I used to go there every week. So it's like Ed and Lorraine were like celebrities to some people. So I was part of their group. So to be nice, I would normally sit right in the front, but there were so many visitors we had. I purposely sat way in the back to let the new people, go see everything. Like I'm there every week. I don't need to be in the first row. So the whole time he's talking, Malachi, he keeps looking like this. I don't know if he's like, he's psychic or something and sees like a bad aura around me and thinks I'm a bad. So I was kind of hiding and stuff. But then at the end, they invited anybody to come, shake hands with them or sign whatever they had, autograph stuff. So at this point, I'm at the end of the line. I might be like 10th in line to see him. And I'm nervous because he keeps looking down he kept looking down the line like this at me, like, oh no. It didn't look good. I had my little hostage book with me. And he said, he finally got to me and he goes, were you the one sitting in the back corner over there? And I was like, yes. He goes, the exact words, I'd have to go back to my first interview, but that's what he said. He goes, you have lights around you like I've never seen in my life. He goes, you're my favorite person in this room. Sit right next to me. So we pull up a chair, and there's pictures of me with his hand on my shoulder, and I'm grinning like a teacher's pet. And I was like, well, why did he pick me like that? And then later, I even asked people. I learned. I made friends with his friends later, like Rob Morrow that was friends with him that used to drive him
Right.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And I said, does he like maybe he does that every time he talks to someone to make someone feel special? Like maybe he just picks one person out of the group to say. He goes, I've never heard him say that to anybody ever. Like, oh,
Wow.
so then,
I was going to say, did he ever mention anything about the perfectly possessed?
yeah. I have the whole hour on cassette tape, and it's just an amazing. I should transcribe the whole interview one day. It was just amazing, just like when he was on Art Bell. It's just
That's
there's
amazing
not
to
one.
me.
There's not one slow second. It's just knowledge.
With him explaining how the perfectly possessed works, it's just so fascinating how that whole thing is.
He explains it way better than I could right now.
But well, you could probably explain it way better than me.
Well, I think he said perfectly possessed people are they know they're possessed and they accept it. Like some of them even asked for it, like sold their soul kind of thing, and they accept that they are, and they said they go through life, and a lot of them are very successful businessmen and politicians and everything. But like get his definition.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and something about they're kind of in a holding pattern until they're needed.
It's very scary.
Oh my gosh. So
go
ahead.
Oh, don't I want to? Yeah, I lose my thoughts on it. So like I said, he made a point to say something very nice to me that stayed with me. Because who says that to you every day?
Yeah.
So then later, now I said with that other group we had on the side, he was like one of our consultants because we worked with Bishop McKenna, who also worked with Malachi Martin. So we used to have this underground, I forget the word for it. I always forget the word, network. But this is like kind of the internet was very new. So we used to find all the traditional Catholic churches in the country, each state, and we created this like booklet of all priests that are willing to do exorcisms, like in what states they are. So if we had somebody, anyway, long story short, it was like the first thing that I knew that we created this big book. So we should try to find people that needed help, and he used to give us a lot of cases, Malachi Martin. And so later, after he died, one day I was on Facebook and I said, let me look up. Maybe there's a fan page for him or something I could follow so I could keep up. Like maybe there's maybe videos and interviews I missed, and maybe I could just follow the page. So I found a Hostage to the Devil page. So it said that it's a documentary on Malachi Martin. So I messaged them and I said, I don't care if it's $100 to watch it. I said, I want to see this documentary because he made a big impact on me. So they said, well, it's not made yet. We want to make it, but there's a lot of people that we want to interview, that we need to interview, but they won't answer us back. And I said, like who? And they start mentioning all these people. I was like, well, that guy's my friend. That guy's my friend. That guy's my friend. And I said, well, could you message them for us and tell them we're trying to do this? And a lot of people were reluctant to be involved because they didn't know what angle they were going to take because he was very controversial and didn't want to, sweet talk them and getting them on a documentary and then trash the guy. So it took a while to get the trust of them. And they're from Ireland. So so they asked me, like, how do I know who he is? And I told them that little story about, how he made a big deal about me at the thing. So they said, that's very interesting. So they finally came, that was in the fall. In January, they came over from Ireland. They said, we want to interview all these people. They said, we're going to stop by your house to talk to you before. Because, I'm the one that started the whole thing, pretty much. So I remember there was snow all over the ground, and like I was waiting for the guy to come. I figured it would be in a car with one or two people. 3 trucks come up. All these people are coming out of the trucks with cameras, lights, stands, like, what is going on here? So they immediately said, where's your little office thing? And we went downstairs and look at all my wall. I have a wall of exorcism, I call it. They're all my tapes and DVDs of exorcisms. And they said, well, you sit right here so we can interview you. I said, I don't want to get it. I don't want to be interviewed. I'm happy with getting you the connections you wanted. I don't want to be or deserve to be on your thing. He goes, no, it's very important to our story. I said, all right, it was very
We got
important
1
to
minute,
you.
buddy.
Yep. So apparently it was very important to them, and the rest is history.
Look, MrHaunted, Origin, Jimmy Pettinino. Where can they get this book at?
Amazon. It's on Amazon. Or if you want to get it signed personally by me and I can send it out to you, there's links on the top of my Facebook page. It's pinned up there with different ways to connect with me. And you put my name on there. It's hard to spell. But if you have it in the description, my name, whatever. But it's pinned on my Facebook page first thing. And Amazon. Thank you.
Well, thank you for my copy. Give
Welcome.
Deb a shout out because she was ecstatic about getting her book.
Deb liked it with the stickers, swag, bookmarks.
Yes, absolutely. So, guys, Jimmy Haunted, get the book, Origin. I haven't read it yet, but knowing Jimmy, I know it's going to be great. Guys, Indie Rewind. Rewind Indie. I keep doing that backwards. Sunday, 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify. Don't forget, John and Heidi show weekdays at 5 a.m. every weekday. We're going to, got our shows coming up with the serial killers, Joe's coming up. This show, Jimmy, thank you so much.
In Dark Places.
We need to make a part 2 of this.
Thanks, Seth and Tracy. Listeners.
In Dark Places as well. Check out In Dark Places.
Junebug,
absolutely.
And check out the Sports Zone podcast with Joe Ashcraft, and he's also doing the 5 minutes of Cup of Joe on our show as well. So appreciate Joe Ashcraft.
Holy man.
Appreciate Tracy. Appreciate MrHaunted. Appreciate Rewind Indie. Appreciate everybody. Everybody have a good night and God bless.